Revit projects will contain lots of views. You can access the various views on the project browser, and you've got floor plan views and ceiling plan views, elevation views, section views, and so on. All of the orthographic views, like plans, sections, elevations, have a crop region. A crop region is simply the outermost boundary of the view, and think of it as the overall extent of that view. By default, that crop region starts off being rectangular in shape. It can be turned on, it can be turned off, and you can even customize its shape to be non-rectangular. So in this movie, we're going to look at the crop regions of our orthographic views. So I'm in a file here called View Crop Regions, and I'm looking at a typical floor plan view. This is the level 1 floor plan view. Now, if I zoom out here, I'm going to use the wheel on my mouse and just sort of roll down until I'm zooming out. You'll notice that I could really zoom almost indefinitely, and the view just gets smaller, and I have all this white space around. The crop region for this view is currently disabled. So the first thing I want to show you how to do is how we can actually enable the crop region. Now, there's two ways we can do that. We can do it on the Properties palette, or we can do it down here on the View control bar. There's two icons here, the Crop View and the Show Crop Region icon, and those correspond to these checkboxes here under the Extents grouping, Crop View and Crop Region Visible. So if I check Crop Region Visible, for example, because this is the first time I'm turning it on, Revit will actually also turn on the Crop View feature as well. So it'll enable both of those. If I apply that change, you're going to see a rectangle appear here that surrounds the floor plan. Now, Revit decides how big to make this rectangle based on the overall view, all the geometry in that view, and then it goes just a little bit larger. So it's looking basically at these elevation markers out here and then adding a little bit of breathing room all the way around. Now, I don't know if you noticed that these icons changed as well when I checked that, but their little red X disappeared, and this one has changed the tooltip to now say, do not crop the view, and this one says hide the crop region. So clicking it here just has the same effect as checking the box there, and you can see that the crop region is hidden. The little light bulb dims out. Clicking it again, it turns it back on. So the two checkboxes can now work independently from one another. Now, I'm going to zoom back in a little bit here, and this rectangle is something that we can manipulate. So if I click on it, you'll see that it's got these little grip points at the edges, and if you grab those little grip points, you can drag it in and it will crop out part of the model. So it's almost as if we've masked out this part of the floor plan over here. And we're just focusing in on the part that remains within the rectangle. If you were to disable the crop feature here, then the entire floor plan would reappear, but notice that the crop region rectangle still remains the same size. So once you start manipulating it, it remembers the size that you placed it at, whether or not you've turned it on or off. Now, this is not limited to just floor plans. If I scroll down here and look at some other view, like, for example, let's take a look at this section at stair here under the sections building section category. This rectangle out here is the crop region for this section. And despite the fact that the section is oriented vertically where the plan is oriented horizontally, everything else behaves exactly the same way. So when you click on this, it has the same dots here, and you could manipulate this in much the same way. Well, suppose I wanted to focus this view on just the stair itself. So I want to crop it in much closer, like so. It looks great on the left, right, and bottom, but when I get to this direction, and let's zoom in a little here, you can see I'm still seeing this little piece of the roof here, and maybe I don't really want that. Maybe I'd like to just have it follow the shape of this window. With this crop region selected, we can look up here on the ribbon, and on this mode panel, there's an Edit Crop button. If I click that, that takes me into this special editing mode, and you can see this crop region changes to this magenta color, and we get some drawing tools over here. And what I can do is I can start drawing a line here, and I'm going to just make sure I'm starting on this magenta line with my first click, and then I'm going to draw it roughly parallel to that window and make sure I go all the way across to this other location here. Cancel out of there. And then I could select this and use these little grips until it snaps, and this little grip until it snaps. And so what I've done is I've created this custom shaped boundary, and when I click this big green checkbox right here to finish that mode, you'll now see that the view is cropped to that shape. If I want to complete the effect, I can come down here and click that little light bulb icon and hide that boundary, and now I'm looking at just the stair. Now we can do the same thing in other views, and in fact, if I go back to my level 1 floor plan, you can actually create views on the fly that have these irregular shaped boundaries. So let's say that I wanted to do an enlarged floor plan of just this reception/corridor area, these two spaces right here. I could go to the View tab, click the Callout button, but notice it's got a drop down, and one of the options is to sketch the callout. So the default behavior is to give you a rectangle callout, but if I choose this option, I can do a sketched callout and literally just draw the shape that I want this boundary to be, and I'll get it to line up with the starting point, end right there, click Finish. And you can see that I've got this callout shape, this dashed boundary surrounding there. If I select it, right-click and say Go to View, that actually created a view here in my project browser that has that irregular shape boundary. So the crop regions can be rectangles, they can be non-rectangular. They have to be enclosed. You can't have an open shape, so it's got to be a closed shape, but it can be really any shape that you like to allow you to focus the view on just the area that you're interested in.